everyone, welcome back. So we continue our prospect pool overviews today with the Washington Capitals. Apologies for the little break yesterday, but regardless, we're back on it again with Washington. So, look, Washington's getting to that point where their core is starting to age. Ovechkin's, getting old. Backstrom's getting old. Oshie, Kuznetsov, Wilson, they're all getting up there in age. And it's time to look at the new guys. Who are the guys who are going to come into the lineup and help out this team and make them have a good future? Right now, it's not the best prospect pool in the world. It's not the brightest future in the world. But there still are some bright players that are on this Capitals prospect pool that are worth talking about. Starting off with probably their best prospect now, the guy they drafted in this past year, Ryan Leonard, center from Amherst, USA, 6 foot, 190 pounds. An amazing forward. And I didn't do a prospect preview for Ryan Leonard, but doing my research, looking at Leonard ahead of the draft, it makes me very hopeful for him and the Washington Capitals. And if my Flyers didn't pick Matvei Michkov, I actually really wanted Ryan Leonard at 7. I really wanted Leonard, but I'm glad that he dropped to 8 at Washington, was a World Junior Championship gold medal winner in 2022-23. He was drafted 8th overall in, of course, this past year's draft, which is basically what I just said. But, of course, he is still a very prominent player and honestly could be a steal for Washington, depending on how he does with them. With the U.S. National Development Program and the U.S. Nationals, he played 74 games combined, had 62 goals, 52 assists, for 114 points. And he's already showing some very good capabilities to his game with dangerous puck handling skills. And he's pro caliber, and that's what I've seen in a lot of articles. He is going to make the NHL unless something freak happens. He will be a solid top 6 forward in the NHL. And you look at a guy like Evgeny Kuznetsov, a guy, and also, too, Nicholas Backstrom. You look at two center players like that who are a little bit doubtful. Backstrom's dealt with injuries, even though he's probably going to be back next year. He's dealt with injuries. Kuznetsov once out of Washington. So you look at that, you see a guy like Leonard in your system, he could be a good, probably first-line center at some point with the Washington Capitals, and it's hopeful that he will turn into that with Washington in the coming seasons. But yeah, I like Leonard a lot. I wanted him on my team. But I don't mind Michkov, so I'm not going to complain. But I'm glad he's with Washington. Next up, Ivan Miroshnichenko. I believe I've said that right. I apologize. And Miroshnichenko is an interesting one. He was diagnosed with cancer. I believe he beat the cancer. And now he is still trying to really find his game after going through treatments and such, dealing with that. And it's amazing how he got drafted to the NHL, still dealing with that. So that's great for him. Left wing from Yurtsevensk, Russia. I believe I'm saying that right. He's 6 foot 194 pounds. So he's a little bit of a taller Russian, and that's definitely good to have. And obviously, Washington's good with drafting Russians. It's a thing with Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, etc. But he won the Hlinka Gretzky Cup in 21-22. Of course, and with Russians, I forgot to mention about this in the previous prospect pool videos. But with Russians, the international play is kind of bloated a little bit because you're not seeing them play internationally for the past 2-3 years. And yes, that is something that you got to keep in mind with Miroshnichenko and Michkov and other guys that I've talked about in this series so far. But of course, they still have some international experience, but still that you're really going to have to rely on with these Russians, those leagues in Russia, because those are the only ways you're going to be able to see them. Miroshnichenko played with a number of teams in the Russian leagues. He was drafted 20th overall, by the way, in 2022. I looked him as a hopeful player, could be a solid top 6 forward, middle 6 forward. But in combined 39 games played with KHL, MHL, and VHL, those combined stats, because I don't just combine them together. They're all like separate together, different stats, but I just put them together. He played a combined amount of 39 games, had 13 goals, 8 assists for 21 points, which I don't think is bad. He's listed as having elite skating, a good shot, and he also has some good size too. He's taller than average, and definitely a solid player to have on your roster for sure. And hopefully, Miroshnichenko could make that jump to the NHL next season, or at least play in the American Hockey League, because of course the Hershey Bears just won a championship. And that's something that people got to keep in mind. The Hershey Bears, the affiliate of the Capitals, just won the Calder Cup. So people saying that, their prospect pool is bottom 5 in the league and that's not even that good. Look at what just happened this past year and tell me that Tell me that they are, because this year looks really promising for some of the young players down there with the Hershey Bears. Next up, then, Hendrik Lapierre. Lapierre was a part of that winning team. He was a center from Gatineau, Canada, 6 foot, 185 pounds, drafted 22nd overall in 2020, and this past year with Hershey played 60 games, had 15 goals, 15 assists for 30 points, and he's listed as a dazzling puck carrier, a good person to handle with the puck. Honestly, many would look at that and say, oh, those AHL stats are concerning. I'm not too worried about them. I'm worried about how he didn't play a lot with Washington this past year. He played more in 21-22 than he did this past season, and I know he may have dealt with some injuries, but still, that is a factor to keep in there. But Lapierre next year is likely going to be a make or break year for him in his NHL career. If we're being brutally honest here. That's it for the forward prospects. I think their forward prospect core is not too bad. There's still some bright gems in there. The defense is where it's like, not that well known of players. Ryan Chesley, defenseman from Matoni, USA, 6 foot, 201 pounds, drafted 37th overall in 2022. He had a solid year with the University of Minnesota. 36 games played, 2 goals, 8 assists for 10 points. Not bad for a defensive defenseman. Of course, again, with the University of Minnesota. He's good transitioning, and he also controls the puck very well, and his controlled stick work is what I've also seen in some articles there, too. So, obviously, a very hopeful defenseman there for Washington. Hopefully, he can maybe make the jump to the AHL next season. That is probably the expectation with him, but, of course, we'll find out if that's the path that they're going to go. I would imagine it is, but, I can't predict the future. Next up, then, Vincent Iorio. I like calling him Oreo, but it's Iorio. Defensive from Chicoutimi, Canada, 6'3", 201 pounds. So he's a little bit taller than most of the other guys that we talked about on this list. Of course, he won the Calder Cup in 2022-23. Drafted 55th overall in 2021. Looked at as a bright player there. Played 3 games this past year with the Capitals, so he's starting to make that step to the NHL and starting to play some games. And he could be a player that, come training camp, could be a good competitor for the Capitals and trying to get a spot on that blue line. 63 games played this past year with Hershey. Had 2 goals, 20 assists, 22 points. Not bad there for a defenseman. Listed as having good passing and has some good middle six upside there. As a defenseman, so likely will be second or third pairing, not a first pairing defender. But of course, we'll see if he can make that remark. But yeah, I like Iorio a lot. Has a cool name, but I think he also has some good upside there too. Finally, we have the goalie prospect. Goalie prospects in Washington aren't the best, but Mitchell Gibson. And this guy's actually interesting to me. Goalie from Phoenixville, USA, 6'1", 187 pounds. He actually went to school near me. He went to Owen J. Roberts, a school that my team has played in high school hockey playoffs, which I thought was pretty interesting. And he went to Harvard University before he was drafted to 124th overall in 2018. So this was way before I even started YouTube, before I was even in middle school when he went to Owen J. Roberts. But still, it is pretty cool to think about how he is raised so close to me, and he made it to the NHL. But 27 games this past year with Harvard, 18-7-2, a 2.25 goals against average, and a .919 C percentage. So actually pretty decent stats there in Harvard. But of course, we'll see if that transitions over to the AHL or the NHL. He lacks some international play. He hasn't played internationally at all. But is that top goalie prospect for the Washington Capitals. And of course, I'm optimistic to see what happens to him because, of course, he lives near me, so that's nice to see. But yeah, regardless, definitely looks like a solid guy there in Harvard. Will probably play well in camp and impress some people and could maybe make an AHL goalie spot there this coming year. Other prospects that are in the pool, and look, it is not that deep of a prospect pool. There's no denying it. There's Alexander Suzdalev, Ryan Hofer, and Ethan Frank are the only other notable prospects that I've seen come up in that prospect pool there for the Washington Capitals. So yeah, that does it for this prospect pool overview. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe down below. I would greatly appreciate it. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.